Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
My next guest is one of the most profound men I've had the pleasure of speaking with. Little did I know when I was taking my son to meet his new driving instructor that not only was he going to get tips on learning how to drive, but he also was going to get tips on learning how to navigate through life with confidence and excellence. My next guest, Brother Alonzo Thornton, is an artist, a blogger, a biblical educator, and an all-around positive spirit. Stay tuned. Big congrats to Free on her new Amazon Music station. Support.
What's up, y'all? I'm your host, Miss Free, and you are now tuned into Rap Rotation Rewind. That's right. This is my new DJ Mo station on Amazon Music, where we play nothing but hip hop 24 hours a day. So stay tuned in. Stay right here. We're going to keep it popping. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of Generation Motivation, the podcast. I am your host, Jay Snipes, aka the podcast to other people. Back with another episode, season 6. And you know what? Thank you so much. I always say this. I have to begin this way. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for the well wishes. Thank you so much for just, your suggestions and having my back and all the prayers and the well wishes. You know, it definitely does not go unnoticed. And just like this gentleman to my left, well, when we start this conversation, I want you to turn your speakers up loud. I want to make sure that you share this information with each and everyone that you can, because this brother is so powerful. I mean, it gave me chills before we even started recording. Some of the information and the wealth of knowledge that he's eager to share is just so enlightening and it's just so powerful. So I have Brother Alonzo Thornton to my left, and we talk about slashes being, different adjectives or different titles to describe it. He has a lot of them. He's very humble. I'm just going to touch on a few of them because I feel like if I don't touch on him, he's not going to touch on them, and I want him. I want to be able to brag on him a little bit before he gives you all these jewels. So I'll start out with this. He is a driving instructor, so we'll touch a little bit on that. But also, and I'm looking at this because I don't want to miss anything. But a biblical educator. He's an artist, nice as well. And then he also has his own company, First Fruits Perspective LLC. So that's just a few of them. But if you search, you'll find a lot more, because very, very deep gentleman. Brother Alonzo Thornton, welcome to Generation Motivation, the podcast.
Oh man, I am so delighted. I almost didn't know who you were talking about.
See,
but I am so happy to be part of this edition, man, and just looking for some great dialogue. And congratulations to you and your wife and just your family.
Thank you.
On a tremendous job you guys are doing to be a light, to be a beacon of hope, to give different perspectives of where God has people in the community throughout. And so I'm just happy to be here, man. Let's go deep.
Let's go deep. Let's go. Oh, wow. I told him he had me choked up before we started recording when, with his interpretation of Generation Motivation. It's just so refreshing because he actually captured, I would almost say verbatim, the purpose of Generation Motivation. So I just feel this connection with Brother Alonzo Thornton. So I will say this. I'll tell a short story about how I actually met him. So, like I said, he's a driving instructor, and Robert, my son, is 16, and he has his permit, and he's kind of getting his hours in so he can get his driver's license. And so it's Saturday morning. It's storming outside, and I'm shaky. I'm shaky about Robert. I'll go ahead and say it. I'm shaky about Robert getting on the road. I'm talking, it's dark outside. The roads are wet. It's raining. I don't see the sun is not shining anywhere, nowhere in sight. And so I called Brother Alonzo Thornton on the phone, and I said, hey, so I'm actually trying to lead him into canceling the driving session. I want him to cancel. I want him to say, I said, with it storming the way it is, I'm sure that the class is gonna be canceled. He said, well, no, actually it's a perfect time to drive. Not a lot of people gonna be on the road, and this is how you help build confidence up. And I'm shaky like this. Like I'm saying, look, I don't want him to go on the highway. I'm already setting boundaries as to what I want Robert to do. And he said, I said, well, maybe I'll talk to Robert and just see where his confidence level is.
Yeah.
On driving. And he said, well, yeah, talk to him and then, give me a call back and kind of let me know. And I'm trying to persuade Robert not to do it. And Robert said, you know what? Okay, I'll do it. And I called Brother Alonzo back and I said, you know what? I guess Robert's ready then. Robert wants to do it. And the cool thing about it, the blessing in this is the fact that not only did Robert get an awesome driving lesson, but just the motivation and the nuggets of positivity that were dropped in his lap during that 2-hour session, it was actually more valuable than the driving lesson itself, because Robert actually was the one who initiated setting up this podcast episode. He told me, I have someone that I think would be great for the podcast. And I said, oh, really? And he was just kind of telling me, he was just so eager to tell me, about Brother Alonzo and all the positivity. And he just came out of that car so confident. And I was like, okay, all right, let's do it then. And next thing you know, we're right here. We're having this podcast episode. So I will say this, I definitely appreciate you using your platform in terms of being a driving instructor to have the youth sit still with you. A lot of times the youth won't even sit still long enough to be able to hear the words and hear the word and the words of positivity. So for you to be used as a vessel in that manner, that's just honorable. So I definitely appreciate you. I went into the whole spiel and I didn't even let you go ahead and talk. So Brother Alonzo Thornton, introduce yourself, tell a little bit about, everything, just kind of, introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers.
Well, I'm so again, I'm so happy, Jay, and to Brother Robert, your lovely wife. She had her hand into this too, so we can't leave her out.
Oh, no. I'm gonna give her some praise.
And so to the audience, what a delight to be part of this podcast. That whole setting that Brother Jay laid out to you, it was real.
Yes.
And so what I used as a motivation for Brother Robert that day was, we're going to have those type of days throughout our lives. We're gonna have. There's no really perfect days for literally anything. And so brother Robert, he came on. He was so excited. We sat down, and actually, I became his big brother.
Yes.
And so I was on his right side, and he was able to demonstrate where he was. And so throughout the 2 hours, I was able to embrace where he was and also advise him where he needed to go, using the medium of the car and his desire to learn to be free and independent.
Yes.
The thing about those two realities, being free and independent, there's a cost you have to pay in order to have that right and entitlement. It's not going to be given to you. If there's any young people out there, the media tells you one thing, but they don't tell you what the sacrifice or the cost will be. Mm. And whatever they're selling to you, you got to know beyond a shadow of doubt that it is meant for you. Mm. because we're more than physical beings. We are spiritual beings locked inside physical vessels. And so those 2 hours, we had a bonding, we talked, I found out about him, I shared about myself, but I used his inexperience and sometimes the fears and inhibitions of what he didn't know as a tool to teach him how to overcome those realities. And like all the students and adults, none of us will ever get rid of real fear because we are broken vessels. We are human between space and time. And the Creator, He has designed us to have an array of emotions that has to be learned to be recognized, but also they have to be subjugated to something greater. And that's where faith comes in. That's where wisdom, that's where knowledge comes in. So we were on that plane and that relaxed him. And he did a tremendous job that day. And that's the every student is an expression of their family, mom and dad. So the fears that I sensed was in the context of his inexperience behind the wheel. But there was no inhibitions about his identity. He knew who he was. Yeah. He knew what he could do academically. He has a vision about what he wants to do. Yes. And then I was able to go to those who have not gone onto the website. I encourage you to go on the website and see the vastness of people that Brother Jay and his wife are connecting to, because the whole concept of the phraseology of generation motivation has everything to do with how our identity forged. Who's responsible for forging, who's responsible for crafting Jay's identity? Who's responsible for crafting Alonzo identity? Someone had to love me and tolerate me, and then to help me to understand where I came from and also what I can become if I can connect myself with my root system. And that root system is two-pronged. We have a humanity we have to deal with, but then the essence of who everyone is a spiritual being wrapped into a garment of clay. And most of the garment externally has cracks in it. And what oozes out is the representation of what you have claimed as your identity. And so if there's light, is there hope, if there's positive, in the midst of storms, that person has connected to the spiritual source of their creation. If there's doubt, fear, inhibitions, even though I want to do it, but I'm afraid to do it, I get consumed, then that is a creature of the very earth by which we were formed. So the hope that we need is, how do you correlate my identity with the Creator? How do I graft that into my physicality? Well, that's what you call being reborn. Then we come into earth, mom and dad do their thing. Mm-hmm. And then there is a 9 months, some 6 months, and a new creature that the world has never seen comes. From the time that that young child comes out of the mom's womb to the time that they go to their tombs, our Creator gives us that gap to rediscover who and what we are in space and time, because there is something greater awaiting us. And all of the constraints in the physical world denies us our true identity. And so we're grappling. And that is where we are. We are closer to us grappling with immortality as opposed to us fighting for a job, a position, power, money. Those things are temporal. And so what the Lord has given me is just a humble spirit to reach out and connect with everyday people who really are the true revolutionaries in every society. It's not the big wigs. It's not the people who think they're running things. It's everyday people who have the courage to be who God has made them to be in space and time, that connect, just like in this broadcast. We're connecting to people with the intent that what Jay speaks and what I speak, it's going to give you a spiritual charge to say, I will be different today. And that's hope.
You know what? I almost don't even want to talk anymore. I almost just want to sit here and listen. That's how. No, and I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not trying to be funny, because, and the reason I say that is because just your voice, your perception, your perspective, everything that you said, once again, is truly a reflection of my vision for Generation Motivation. This is, you know what, and your perspective is probably even deeper than what my vision was. But that is, in essence, what I feel like we are here for. This is what we're on earth for. You know, and we talked about this off camera. You know, it's great to have hope. You know, everyone needs hope. It's great to have hope, but at some point you have to be able to go from having hope to being hope.
That's right.
You have to be able to transfer your energy and your positivity to someone else. Be hope. If something happens and it makes you whole when you were broken, all right, so now you're whole. So let's go ahead and start to try to help some of these other people that are broken and help make them whole. And if you can touch one person and that one person touches another person, and that goes all throughout the world, do you know what type of society we would have if we all had that mentality? The mentality that you have, you know. And I want to keep bragging on him, because he's not going to brag on himself. But even off camera, he said, you know what? And I was talking about, you know, the titles and this, and he said, it's not about me. He said, it's not about me as an individual. It's about me being a vessel and me being able to, you know, shine that light and be a beacon of light, a beacon of hope. And for me to be able to transfer this message that's coming from the heavens, it's not about me. It's about the messenger. I'm like, I mean, it's about the message, not the messenger. And I'm just like, I mean, I'm literally getting chills listening to it, because this is the mentality. And sometimes, you know, as human beings, we fall short, we get frustrated, you know, we don't know how to articulate it the way that we are feeling it. But just the way you're articulating these words, I need everyone to sit down, bring your family around. I know it's warm outside right now, but when it gets cold, go around the fireplace. Hey, go around the fireplace and I want you to listen to this message, because this is what we need. This is the vital information that we need. We talked about, you know, even the media. You have to be able to disseminate. You know, like you said, we're lost beings. We're in that transition phase, that transition period, and we're looking for something tangible to grasp on. And sometimes when you grasp on the wrong thing, just because, you know, it looks a certain way and it feels a certain way, you know, you got to be careful what you grasp upon, though. That's right.
That's right.
Be careful what you grasp upon. But how did you get so wise? Let me. You're so deep. I was like, I need this. How did you get so wise on these topics?
Probably the best way to respond to that excellent question is to help your audience understand who I am. And who I am is that I am a God-fearer. And he has called me into discipleship with this Jewish rabbi from Nazareth. And that's Jesus. So I'm a Talmudan, I'm a disciple of the greatest revolutionary in the history of the world. And he has called me into a discipleship agreement. He's yoked with me and I'm yoked to him. And he's commissioned me. The Creator has given the Son charge to commission me to go in all the world, Matthew 28, and tell them about the Father. It's called immersion people with the truth about the Creator that used his Son and charged the world that was all broken and in disarray with the Holy Spirit to come from heaven and prick and pierce the hearts of men and women to bring regenerative life to dead vessels. And as a disciple or a Talmudan, that Holy Spirit, it leads you and guides you into all truth. And then the Lord has the gall to even say, I will be with you until the end of this age. So what does that mean? Is that it's not just a religious from the neck up that God is interested in. He's interested in fusing aspects of himself into vessels of clay to reacquaint you to the divine call before sin came into the earth. Mm. So it's a reformulation of one's identity to not worship self, but worship the Creator. Yes. And he has handed all his creation to the Son, who has the courage to delegate aspects of his ministry as he tarries to wait to come back. So he's looking for disciples. Yes. And in the Jewish tradition, someone who's 12 actually becomes an adult. They enter into womanhood and manhood. So those young children, those young adults that are listening to this, mm-hmm. God wants you. God, he's looking forward to you to turn away from those things that are going to force you to have a false sense of self and never find out who you really are. He will forge a new dimension that the world can't give you. And the Creator will show you why you were born. And he'll give you full mastery over the gifts that are locked inside of you. And once they are unraveled because you formulate this oneness with him, this world won't be able to contain the blessedness that is waiting to come out to touch somebody else. Now, this whole matter about the generation, if you don't have this encounter with the Creator as of today, I challenge everyone, regardless of your age, to go backwards. Reconnect with grandma. Reconnect with grandfather. Yes. Find out your legacy. Yeah. Matter of fact, I challenge you to go back to the 1800s and see how regal we were when we were excluded from America's system. How beautiful we were. We couldn't vote. We couldn't participate in the so-called status quo, but we were beautiful people. We maintained our dignity. We had intelligence. We have regal. We were beautiful in everything we did. even in slavery, we had a regal way about us because we knew that's not who we were. And the thing that caused us to be greater than our situation, it had everything to do with who we're connected to. Mm. That spiritual man who he is waiting. And so the wisdom comes not from man. The wisdom does not come from the institutions that are in peril and they will be destroyed. The wisdom comes from the throne room of the Father. Mm. And he grants for us to be living jewels, pearls of wisdom that he never intends for us to keep to ourselves. You have to share it. Master, he had this one word that described his 3.5 years of servitude. It's a Greek word. It's called kenosis. Kenosis is the expression of to totally empty oneself on behalf of someone else. Matter of fact, why did he do that? Because the greatest virtue that he has was that of humility. In the face of all opposition, he chose to be humble because he knew that the source of his strength to overcome it was not in his own self. It came from the one who had called him to be a servant in order to redeem those who are lost, confused, and confounded. That includes all of us. Yes. And so he had love, he had mercy, long suffering. He had the power of the Holy Ghost in his hands, but he chose to be as humble as a lamb, even unto death, so that we can learn how to live and learn how to die of our own selfish ambitions in order for us to be able to see and be what God's called us to be. Now, this transcends any religion. This transition, any type of institutional church system, I'm not against that. Oh, but when he calls you, you are equipped to go wherever he leads you. You are not restricted. The only lordship I have is to the Lord who called me out of darkness into light. And so that's liberty that no one can take. And the virtue that comes from connectedness to the Father, nothing in the world can destroy it or contain it. Now that's a movement. That's a movement. That's a movement. I was, you know what, and I was going, good gracious, I was going to ask you, at what point did you know that you were born to do this? At what point did you know that you were born to be a vessel to give this information to, you know, each and every one that you encounter? That is a powerful question. And there's really not one answer to it. Yeah. I'll put it this way. All of the things that the Lord our God has permitted me to see firsthand. I met him when I was confused, confounded young man at the age of 16, 17. Okay. It was a powerful encounter I had with the living Lord, where he broke me based upon just a horrible upbringing. Okay. A lot of dysfunction in my family, alcoholism, abuse, mental illness, broken relationships in our family, love supreme, and in my own personal life, you know, being like the young kids that I work with all the time. I recognize their fear because I had the same fear. Mm. But that type of fear that I had was impaling fear. It disabled me to not know who and what I was. And I knew I needed something greater than anyone could give me. Now, from there, there's a process. That's why I call myself a lifelong learner.
Yes.
And I encourage all young children, even adults, do not believe the hype. What you knew last year no longer will be applicable for this year. You must continue to be a lifelong learner. So, as a lifelong learner, I started to pursue theological and biblical understanding. I have a master's in divinity, I have a doctorate in ministry.
Yes.
But I also have seen the limitations of even that structure of learning. The Holy Spirit is the only great teacher that could lead you in space and time where God purposed you to be. All the other learning was a discipline to see if I'm truly, truly, quote unquote, a disciple worthy of the commissioning. Now, God is looking for those who he chooses to commission to be what he wants them to be. But you got to have the right temperament. You have to have the discipline. There's about 12 spiritual disciplines that every disciple should have and have a sense of self-mastery. That's how you maintain your spiritual identity and integrity, regardless of what you have to endure. Okay. And how do you see people who are calling themselves believers and Christians falling off the wagon? Because it is a religious expression as opposed to being forged with fire of the Spirit of God. And so once the spiritual virtues are ingrained within your innermost being, that is how you endure to the end. Not on strength, not on knowledge, not on money, not on fame and fortune. Those are tangible items that won't make it to heaven. The only way that we are going to be powerful in this world is that we have to enable the things from heaven to come inside of us while we're here on earth, because that's the DNA we're going to need when this world is over. But while we're here, that's what they see. That's what they feel on the broadcast. Now, you're an instrument, but the Lord our God uses any part of you that he's made to be a voice, to be a magnet, to be a sense of inspiration, to point someone away from self towards total truth. Yeah. Now, we can get into a debate, what is truth, absolute, what not, but I believe God says he says it in Romans 1, everything he created knows that he is God. You can try to deny it, but there are so many visible signs that the animals, they relate to it. So why are those creatures that are just underneath an angel deny the existence of God? Well, they're denying their true identity and purpose in space and time, to be used willfully. And that's the key right there. I have to willfully submit every day, Jay, to be what he wants me to be. And so the master says, you got to go out and disciple others in the way that I disciple you. And that's my baby. That's what gives me motivations. And like you have motivation on your podcast. Yes. When I'm discipling brothers and sisters, yes, that's where I just go through a metamorphosis change, because I just can't contain myself.
You know what? And I'm going to stop right here. I'm of course I have to edit this out, because we on minute 34 right now. We haven't even gotten into but 2 questions at the end. I knew this thing was going to go so far and so deep. That's why I say I want to sit back and just listen to you. So this is what I want to do. I want to stop now. So it's a good stopping point. And then I want to jump back in it for a few minutes if you have time.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to jump back in it for a few minutes and because I do want to talk. I do want to talk about, you know, you being an artist as well, and also, you know, First Fruits Perspective LLC,
Sure.
and then you know, my two
The two
questions,
questions.
and then I always wrap it up. You know, what tidbits do you want to? I mean, what words of wisdom? I mean, your whole interview is a word of wisdom, so I can't say. But if you want to sum it up, you know, what words of wisdom? So that, you know, and then we'll just kind of wrap it that way. But that final question about, you know, how do you feel as though you're motivating your generation? That's normally the last question that I ask.
Okay, so, brother.
Yeah, I wish you could see Teresa. Teresa's over here like a cheerleader, boy. She can't wait for me to get this episode out. So Robert and Sanaya and everybody can see. We're gonna sit and watch this. We're gonna sit and watch this one by the fireplace. we're definitely gonna sit and watch it. But it's beautiful. This once again this is my vision, but this vision is coming from up above. So, and like I said, you know, a lot of times it's just, I get so worked up because I know that I am supposed to be doing much more. And that was what really brought me to Generation Motivation. It was that poking, you know, just everyday life and wanting to make an impact and going through COVID and, you know, seeing, I mean, coworker of mine, early 30s, passed away from cancer. And I said, I know there's so much more. Even when I wrote my book, I wrote a little dedication to him, you know, in the beginning, because when I told him about my vision for Generation Motivation, and he kind of saw a few things, he was like, man, I love what you're doing with it, you know, and it's just, you know, I just know I have purpose, and I know everyone has purpose.
Amen.
And I want people to be able to understand that they have purpose and understand they have power and understand the impact that they can make on just the people in your household.
That's right.
You know, you have people that jump on social media and they want to do all of this for everybody else, but look, take care of home. Be a positive influence on your own kids so they can go out and understand.
That's right.
You know, not just in front of the cameras. Let's do it at home too, you know? So
that's right.
But so, and I know you're very humble. He already told me that, once again, he wants to be about the message and not the messenger. But the reason I like to brag on people, you know, that I bring on the podcast. And the reason I say that, and I guess, you know, brag, but I want to be able to shine a light on some of the, you know, the gifts, God-given gifts and talents, you know, that were, you know, bestowed upon us, because I feel like with people watching, people listening to this, it's also, there's something in being able to, you know, talk about the gifts that are given, and for people to be able to recognize that we have a lot of talents within. You know, some of those talents are untapped, but, you know, when I speak of talent such as your artwork, you know, being able to see your artwork, and, you know, with you having your first art exhibit, things of that nature, I feel like that's inspirational. I don't consider that bragging. I consider that sharing the gifts and being an inspiration to others as well, you know, that may want to follow in your footsteps or understand how that process works, or that experience. So just kind of tell a little bit about, you know, you being an artist as well, and how that experience kind of came about.
Well, it's a natural gift that the Creator gave me, and I've developed it over the years. I don't like to use the word escapism, but art, music, writing, those are ways in which we can go inward and get in contact with the Lord communicating with us. And then we channel that through pen and ink. I'm a blogger. I've been blogging for years. Words are no different than musical notes. artwork and writing and music. Those gifts are God given and they outlive the one who actually do it.
Mm.
So being connected to the Lord, our God, being created in his likeness means that we have within us a form of creativity that needs to be expressed in the earth. And so I might do an art piece, I might put my signature on it just to sell it, to identify that that's my fingerprint and that nobody else in the world has that fingerprint and my blood, sweat, and tears that I'm actually trying to express either in words, through my blog, through artwork, through my keyboard. Um, for the young children, young adults, one of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten is from my son, Javon. He is 36. He has a fraternal twin sister, Ashley.
Oh, okay.
One of the most humblest experiences I've ever had, and he's 6'9".
Wow. Okay.
And he broke my heart in a loving way, says that I am his hero. And there is nothing in this world that could supplant that.
Yeah.
And so art is another way in which the Lord our God gives me the capacity to express invisible imagery that actually I can correlate into a visible manifestation. And that's how the earth and the creation came into fruition.
Yeah.
Out of nothing became something.
Mm.
And so those are ways in which I can leave a fingerprint that is distinctively connected to me being here in space and time.
Yes. Yes.
And everyone has a gift.
You know what? And that is so powerful in itself, because that is something, and I think we talked about this off camera too, about the connection with, prior generations,
Yes,
being able to get back in connect with your grandmother and your grandfather,
that's
connect
right.
those, your elders. And I bring that back up because, like you said, about the fingerprints, the footprints, being able to leave your mark, it's imperative that we don't let all of the, our legacy just vanish and fade away by not, being able to record these moments, with our elders, and being able to, whether it be, obviously through video now, whether it be through, recorders, or whether it's through written word, or what have you. But the fact that, it's a wealth of knowledge out there, being able to interview, our grandparents, and not just learn about your family history. Hey, learn about what was going on at that time. Learn
That's
about
right.
as a whole from their perspective, because everything that, the media says is not necessarily, truth. So
That's right.
be able to talk to a trusted source in your family to get their perspective. I think that's something big. That's something that we're actually doing, right now with our kids. Like, hey, and it's cool you're talking about Robert, because Robert is very inquisitive. He was like, hey, I would love to talk, to grandpa, about history, or talk to grandma about, her side of the family, and some of the things that they went through. And I actually recorded my parents. I recorded them as an episode for Black History Month, because, they love to just kind of sit and talk about what life was during that time frame. My father, he'll be 85. My mom is 81.
Wow.
Yes, so it's a blessing, and they're, definitely willing to share that information. And so these are things we can't, take for granted. The young kids, when your grandparents are around, hey, get off your devices. You don't have to play.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, you don't have to be play PlayStation at that time, or you don't have to be on your phone. Sit and talk to your grandparents. And that was something that my parents always told me too. Like when my grandparents would come around, hey, go talk to your grandma. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Yeah, which was cool. Go talk to them and be an active participant.
That's right.
Hey, don't just talk to them and ask them a question and get up and walk away. No, I want you to be an active participant, actively listen to it, because you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at the wealth of knowledge and the jewels and the gems that they are eager to share. And it's just amazing. And as I grow older and more mature, I definitely understand. And, I understand and I don't take for granted this session. I don't take this for granted. Granted, I'm doing an interview for a podcast episode, but I don't take for granted the fact that you've taken your time to share your wealth of knowledge and your wisdom. And this message is going to touch someone. We may not know who it is, but like you said,
right.
18 years from now, someone might click on this. They might be going through a hard time. They might not understand what their purpose in life is. They might be, in a transitional phase, but your words of wisdom, hey, you know what? It's like a light bulb. Okay, now I understand why I'm confused right now. Now I understand what I need to do. I need to, grasp on to, my faith and things
right.
like that. So, but yeah. So, but talk a little bit about First Fruits Perspective LLC.
That's just a business responsibility, so I can be accountable for the artwork. Also, it's a means in which people who want to share free will offerings to my biblical education, which I do for free online. I have students over in the Caribbean, here in the United States. And believe it or not, there are approximately 12 disciples that I teach.
Wow.
Just like the master. And it's open, but we narrow it down to 12. So it's a legal business that actually I've taken the gifts that God has given me and just put it right under that umbrella.
Okay. So this question might be, I'm gonna ask one more question before I go into my two. Everyone knows I always ask my two questions as I wind down. So, and this might be tough, but in summation, if you had to give words of wisdom, which once again, I would say your whole episode is it's just wisdom in itself. But if there was just one nugget of information that you wanted to leave with someone who may be in that transitional phase right now and just trying to find themselves, what would that nugget of information be?
The essence of the life of an individual or individuals that are listening to this broadcast, the essence of who you currently are, you have to be critical and re-examine and see if in fact there's a fallacy within yourself, and use that as a beginning to really discover or maybe rediscover an identity of really who you are. And how do you do that is that you, as we have articulated quite freely and beautiful tonight, is that no one individual will be able to make it in this life by themselves. And so we have to do a background check of our place of origin. We have to go all the way back. I'm privileged, Brother Jay, to be able to track my family history in slavery.
Oh, wow.
Three generations removed from slavery up to this date. So I see all of the history that is now trying to be eradicated. You can't do it because people live through it. And even though we could not read or write, guess how we pass on information from one generation to the other? Oral tradition. That means listening to someone who knows about life, truth, and death, and including you into their process. By having a sense of community and seeing that it does not involve you exclusively, you will be connected to a source of wisdom, knowledge, and experience that you could grow on and discover yourself for the first time. That's the short response.
Deep. Just let me ask these two questions before I before we go into another episode. Because I mean, it's like everything that you speak is just the wisdom. Once we talk about the cracks and what oozes out, it's just wisdom. Wisdom is oozing out. That's what's oozing out. Eloquent wisdom at that. So as we wind down, two questions I ask. What do you want your legacy to be? And I know you've thought about it because I can definitely tell legacy is something that resonates with you. So what does Brother Alonzo Thornton want his legacy to be?
I'm going to use a sense of humor, and it's quite simple. If I'm no longer around and someone accidentally came into where I live and where I reside, they have to see everything in my house as a record of who I served. They have to look around my house and see that this man was a noble man, he was humble, but he was connected to the ultimate truth. They'll look at my bookshelf, they'll look at my writings, they'll look at my artwork, they'll look at the tidiness of my home, and they'll find that this was just an ordinary man that lived an extraordinary life. So the legacy is that he was one of the most faithful disciples of the very man that called him, which was Christ.
Gotcha. Wow. My final question, and we've touched on it a lot, but I guess in summation, with this podcast being Generation Motivation, the podcast, how do you feel as though you are motivating your generation and generations to come?
As we have done today, Brother Jay, and what I've heard others, is that we are all connected. We're all relational creatures. And even though people are not sure about who they are in an insane culture that we're living in, there is still something powerful that we can give when we come together. The greatest obstacle to self-discover and individual and finding our purpose is this great divide in family structures, in community, and as we see in the world. So as relational creatures, we are called by our Creator to dialogue and to share as we are doing, in hope that something that I say, what you give me, can be a spark that will encourage a new life or new fire. And that's what we need. We need fire to be warm, which is embodiment of love. And that same fire is a light of hope.
Wow. Brother Alonzo Thornton,
It's been a great time, man.
It
I
has
appreciate
been.
you.
Hey, your words of wisdom, your voice, your tone. It's just soothing. I just want you almost just want to sit back and I almost forget that I'm interviewing you. I just want to sit back and listen. So how can people connect with you through social media, or how if they want to find out more about you and what you have?
It's best. I know it's not really kosher now to give phone numbers out.
Oh no.
Uh, and so my website is temporarily down, but
Okay.
anyone can actually reach out to me. Email ALONZOE numerical 1 at yahoo.com, and just reference our podcast, and I'll be more than happy to reach out to you that way.
Okay.
And if you want to read a little bit of the wisdom that God has given me on a weekly basis, just go into your search engine and put a small case firstfruitsperspective.org.
Yes.
And there's about 12 years of data you can search for. There's something in it that's going to entertain you and cause you to have a critical mindset about the who, what, when, where, how come, and why not.
There you go. Exactly. Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time, not just taking the time for this podcast, but just taking the time to be the person that you are. Like you said, it's refreshing for people to understand their God-given gifts and to not just understand that they have them, but understand the value of them and the willingness to be able to share those gifts with others. That's the important part. A lot of people know that they're talented. A lot of people know that they have gifts, but it's the willingness to be able to share those gifts and those talents with others to help elevate others.
That's right.
That's what society needs.
That's right.
That's what society needs. So, any last words of wisdom? Anything else you want to leave the people with? Are y'all tapped out? You poured out? Because I know, as a vessel, you have to empty yourself to be able to, to be filled up again. So, anything else you wanted to leave us with before we sign off?
There's this Aaronic benediction that the great priests back in the day, they would render to the people as they leave. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May his countenance shine on each and every one of you. And that I pray that he permits his shalom, which is a universal verbiage of wholeness and completeness, be in the lives of everyone, including you, your wife, and your lovely daughter and son, Brother Jay. I appreciate this encounter, my man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you and you, the listener and viewer. I appreciate you for tuning in to another episode of Generation Motivation, the podcast. Please take heed to this particular episode in particular, because the wisdom that was shared with you is not by accident or happenstance. If you're listening to this podcast, it was intended for you to listen to it, because we want you to be able to gain insight and be able to share it with others. So until next time, I am Jay Snipes, aka the podcaster of the people. And I'll catch you in the next episode.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.